first light of dawn stretched thin over the Nevada desert, painting the horizon in streaks of amber and rose. At the remote military training base, the morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of sand and gunpowder. In the armory, the quiet hum of fluorescent lights clashed with the sharp rhythm of boots on concrete. Corporal Riley Kane, the sniper assigned to the elite reconnaissance team, methodically inspected her rifle. Every part gleamed under her practiced hands, the barrel immaculate, the scope aligned to perfection. She had performed this ritual hundreds of times before, yet a flicker of unease tugged at the edge of her focus. Something felt off. Commander Hawk, a veteran of countless operations with eyes as sharp as his instincts, stormed into the armory without warning. His presence turned the air electric, commanding attention. The usually steady room froze. Who tampered with the rifle? His voice was low at first, then sharp, each word cutting through the tension like a knife. He slammed a hand onto the metal armory table, rattling weapon racks and scattering a few loose shells. Silence fell immediately, thick and suffocating. The team's seasoned members avoided his gaze, each waiting for someone else to answer. Riley's pulse ticked in her ears. Her rifle lay perfectly on the table, untouched, yet her stomach tightened. Her team, sensing the storm, subtly moved closer, forming an almost instinctive shield around her. Lieutenant Jackson's arm brushed against her shoulder in a silent gesture of support. The protective circle was small, but it spoke volumes. They trusted her, and they would back her up, no matter the consequences. Still, the commander's scrutiny burned, a relentless fire that probed for weakness or dishonesty. Outside, desert winds rattled the perimeter fencing, carrying an eerie sense of foreboding. The sun hadn't yet fully climbed, leaving elongated shadows that danced across the armory's concrete floor. Riley's gaze flicked to the windows, noting the unusual stillness of the base. Typically, the desert came alive with birds, the scuttling of small animals, but today it felt wrong, almost as if someone or something was lurking just beyond sight, observing, waiting. Her instincts, honed through years of training and survival exercises, screamed that this was no ordinary inspection. Corporal Kane, Commander Hawk's voice cut through her thoughts. Step forward now. The words were sharp, and for a moment Riley hesitated. Her hands remained steady on the rifle, but a subtle tremor coursed through her chest. She had never failed an inspection. She had never been suspected of sabotage, and yet here she was, the silent eye of suspicion staring her down. Slowly, deliberately, she stepped forward, maintaining the calm precision that had become her trademark. Every movement was measured, every expression controlled, but inside, adrenaline surged. The commander circled the table, eyes scanning the rifles, lingering on Riley with a mixture of curiosity and accusation. "I've trained soldiers for over 20 years, he said, his voice low, almost conversational. "I can spot a tampered weapon a mile away. This," he tapped the rifle's stock lightly. "This is different. Someone been here manipulating our tools. Someone has broken protocol. Someone has risked lives." His words hung in the room like smoke, heavy and suffocating. Riley's teammates exchanged glances. Sergeant Miller's jaw tightened, a flicker of envy in his eyes. Private Diaz shifted nervously, glancing at Riley and then away. There was fear, yes, but also an unspoken message. Riley was not alone. The team's loyalty formed an invisible barrier, a silent promise that no accusation would reach her without a fight. Riley met the commander's gaze evenly. "Sir," she said, her voice calm, unwavering, "I've checked this rifle myself. No one has touched it." Commander Hawk's eyes narrowed, studying her as if trying to read hidden signals, searching for a flicker of deceit. "Then explain this," he said, producing a small, folded note from his pocket. The paper was blank to the casual eye, but Riley caught the faint smudge along the edge, fingerprints deliberately placed, meant to provoke doubt. The air in the armory felt charged, each breath thick with tension. The note was a spark in a dry room, threatening to ignite old rivalries, hidden grudges, and the thin veneer of trust that held the team together. Riley's hands remained steady, but her mind raced. She recalled the minor anomalies over the past week, the misplaced toolkit in the armory, the subtle misalignments on other weapons, radios briefly cutting out during training exercises. Someone had been testing boundaries, probing weaknesses, and now the stakes had escalated. Outside, a shadow shifted across the perimeter. Riley's eyes flicked to the faint silhouette against the desert morning light, a watcher. Someone had been observing, waiting for this very moment. Commander Hawk's voice snapped her back. "Answers. I need names. I need loyalty. Who is responsible?" The room seemed to contract, every soldier aware that one wrong word could change everything. Riley's team subtly adjusted, forming a tighter circle, their presence a physical and symbolic shield. They would protect her, not out of fear, but out of trust forged in shared battles and unspoken understanding. The tension in the room was palpable, each heartbeat a countdown to revelation or disaster. Riley met the commander's gaze once more. "Sir," she said, softer this time, "I don't know who did this, but I know it wasn't me, and I won't let whoever it is jeopardize our mission or our team." Her voice carried authority beyond her rank, the calm of someone who had survived countless missions through skill and instinct. Commander Hawk's eyes lingered on her, a storm of suspicion and respect battling within. Outside, the desert wind picked up, rattling the armory windows with a sinister cadence. Riley's instincts screamed that the threat was closer than anyone realized. The shadow she had glimpsed earlier remained at the edge of the perimeter, silent, patient, watching her every move. Someone had tampered with the rifle, but who and why? The silence in the room was deafening now, each second stretching longer than the last. Riley's team remained unwavering, forming their protective shield. Commander Hawk exhaled slowly, his gaze sweeping the armory once more. "This isn't over," he said, voice low but filled with authority. "I will find out who did this, and I expect answers before it's too late." Riley's eyes narrowed on the shadow outside, heart pounding. The game had begun, and the desert, vast and unforgiving, seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see who would make the next move. The tension was unbearable, the stakes unimaginable, and one thought lingered in Riley's mind. Someone had crossed the line, and nothing would ever be the same again. The armory's tension lingered like a heavy fog, refusing to dissipate. Riley Kane stood at the center, calm on the surface, but inside her mind raced at a relentless pace. The eyes of Commander Hawk, sharp and unyielding, scrutinized her every breath, every twitch. Outside, the Nevada sun began its climb, burning away the mist but not the unease that clung to the base. Her teammates sensed the scrutiny, instinctively closing ranks, forming a subtle barrier of protection. Lieutenant Jackson stood slightly to her right, Sergeant Miller to the left, and Private Diaz lingered just behind, all bodies angled in quiet, unspoken defiance of suspicion. The commander circled the table again, inspecting every rifle with the meticulous care of a man who had seen countless battles and betrayals. "I've trained soldiers for 25 years, he said, voice low but heavy, each word deliberate. "I can tell a lie from the truth before a man even opens his mouth. Yet here we are, someone's breached protocol, someone's manipulated a weapon that could cost lives. I want answers now." The team remained silent, the only sound the faint hum of lights above and the distant creak of perimeter fencing in the wind. Riley's gaze scanned each face, noting micro-expressions: hesitation, avoidance, a twitch of guilt or fear. Her instincts, honed over years of sniper training and battlefield missions, told her the saboteur was close, but no one on the surface gave themselves away. Riley's pulse remained steady, controlled, even as her mind plotted contingencies. She knew that revealing even a fraction of suspicion could fracture the unit further, and in a scenario like this, unity was everything. If Commander Hawk discovered the true saboteur without proof, Riley could be blamed, her career and life on the line. She glanced at Lieutenant Jackson, who subtly tilted his head toward her, a silent gesture: "We've got your back." Commander Hawk's eyes narrowed, scanning the group with precision. "This isn't just about protocol," he said. "It's about trust, and trust has been violated. If I discover the culprit before the rest of you do, there will be consequences." His hand tapped the rifle's stock again, a quiet but pointed emphasis. "Someone inside this base is playing a dangerous game. Lives are at risk. Every second that passes without answers is another chance for disaster." The weight of his words hung over the team, heavy and suffocating. Outside, the wind carried faint whispers of the desert, rattling the fencing like distant murmurs. Riley's eyes flicked to the windows, scanning the horizon. The shadow she had glimpsed yesterday lingered in her memory, a silent watcher at the perimeter. It had been patient then, and now she knew it remained. Someone was observing, learning, waiting for the perfect moment. Her teammates shifted subtly, each movement protective yet purposeful. Sergeant Miller's posture stiffened, Private Diaz's hands brushed the rifle straps almost instinctively, and Lieutenant Jackson's eyes never left the commander. The barrier they formed around Riley was invisible to anyone untrained, but it spoke volumes. They believed in her skill, her judgment, her integrity, and if that barrier failed, they would fail with her. Hawk exhaled a slow, measured release. Corporal Kane stepped forward. Riley obeyed, moving deliberately toward the center of the room. Her rifle remained at her side, every detail immaculate, every component in its rightful place. Her eyes met Hawk's, calm and unwavering. "Sir," she said, voice steady, "I have inspected this rifle personally. No one has touched it. Whoever did this had access and knowledge, but it wasn't me." The commander paused, studying her carefully, weighing every nuance. "You are confident?" he asked, his tone deceptively gentle. Riley nodded. "Yes, sir, confident." Hawk's gaze drifted over the rest of the team, then back to her. "Then the question becomes, who is willing to speak? Who will step forward and tell me the truth?" His voice carried the weight of command, the kind that could break men or forge them into something stronger. No one moved. The silence was thick, almost tactile, each second stretching unbearably. Riley's teammates remained steadfast, an unspoken wall of loyalty and protection. Outside the armory, a low hum of movement caught Riley's attention. Desert dust swirled at the perimeter fence, a shadow twisting in the early sunlight. Her instincts flared. Someone was out there, waiting, watching. The saboteur was clever, meticulous, invisible, but not untouchable. Every subtle action, every movement, every step Riley took was measured, calculated. She knew the shadow was part of the game. The real threat wasn't inside the room. It was outside, feeding on the chaos inside. Hawk's voice snapped Riley back. "Do you understand what's at stake?" he asked, voice low and dangerous. "Someone compromised a weapon that could cost lives. Not just yours, not just mine. Lives. And no lie, no hesitation will be tolerated." his eyes locked on her, searching for the smallest flicker of deception. Riley remained composed, but her mind raced through scenarios. The saboteur could be anyone, a disgruntled soldier, a jealous rival, or someone exploiting internal tension to weaken the team. She recalled the minor anomalies over the past week: misplaced toolkits, subtle misalignments on other rifles, radios cutting out during exercises. All signs of preparation, all subtle manipulations designed to test the team's vigilance. Lieutenant Jackson's hand brushed briefly against Riley's arm, a silent reassurance. The protective circle tightened imperceptibly, bodies shifting like a living shield. Riley's eyes swept across the room again, noting every hesitation, every nervous glance. Someone here had the skill and knowledge to manipulate the rifle without detection, but they had underestimated her team's unity. The commander exhaled slowly, tension visible even in his broad shoulders. "This isn't over," he said, voice low, measured, full of authority. "I will find out who did this, and I expect answers before it's too late." The words were a thunderclap, reverberating through the room. Riley's pulse quickened, adrenaline surging. The desert outside seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move in this deadly, invisible game. Riley's gaze returned to the perimeter, where the shadow had been yesterday. It was patient, and relentless. Someone had crossed a line, and the consequences would ripple through the team and perhaps far beyond the base. Riley adjusted her grip on the rifle, feeling its familiar weight and balance. She had a target, a mission, and a team that would shield her until the truth emerged. But the desert, vast and unforgiving, reminded her of one fact. In this game, trust was fragile, and betrayal could strike without warning. Tension was suffocating. The armory, normally a place of routine and discipline, had become a stage for suspicion and unseen threats. Riley's team remained steadfast, their silent shield a statement of loyalty stronger than words. Yet even as the commander's eyes lingered, and the shadow lingered outside, one thought gnawed at her. Someone had tampered with the rifle, and the next move could cost more than just reputation. The armory had fallen into an uneasy quiet after Commander Hawk's warning, but the tension didn't dissipate, it shifted, like a storm gathering strength on the horizon. Riley Kane returned her rifle to its rack with precise care, every movement deliberate, yet her mind raced through the events of the past week. She knew the sabotage wasn't random. Subtle anomalies, misaligned scopes, jammed radios, misplaced gear, were deliberate tests probing for weaknesses in the team. And someone inside was orchestrating it, someone clever, patient, and dangerously skilled. Her teammates clustered nearby, their silent loyalty palpable. Lieutenant Jackson's gaze flicked between Riley and the commander, a protective shield in its own right. Sergeant Miller's jaw tightened, the tension in his posture betraying a mixture of envy and frustration, while Private Diaz fidgeted, glancing nervously at Riley and then away, as if fearing that even a misplaced glance could spark suspicion. Riley's heart pounded in sync with the unspoken anxiety, knowing that any wrong move, any misplaced word, could unravel the fragile unity of her team. Commander Hawk moved deliberately, circling the room like a predator assessing prey. "You all know the stakes," he said, his voice low but lethal, each syllable weighted with authority. "We have a saboteur in our midst, someone who has violated trust and protocol. I want names, I want answers. Lives are at stake." His eyes scanned every face, searching for the smallest flicker of deceit, and Riley knew that even the tiniest twitch could be a giveaway. The room held its breath, not one soldier moved to speak. Suspicion hovered over the group like a cloud of venomous insects, each waiting for another to falter. Riley's eyes swept the room carefully, noting micro-expressions, a slight tightening of a jaw, a momentary shift in posture, a nervous flicker in the eyes. Each subtle signal was a clue, but nothing was definitive. The saboteur had been clever enough to leave almost no trace, and yet, Riley could feel the invisible threads of manipulation weaving through every detail of the past week. She recalled the minor incidents leading up to this moment. Sergeant Miller had complained unusually about his own rifle alignment, even though he was an expert marksman. Private Diaz had been unusually jittery during the last exercise, losing focus for just a moment, but enough to catch Riley's attention. Even Lieutenant Jackson had seemed distracted at times, though his loyalty had never wavered. The inconsistencies were subtle, almost imperceptible, but Riley's instincts told her they were all connected, a calculated pattern designed to disorient and divide. Hawk's voice broke through her thoughts. "Corporal Kane, I want you to lead an internal review of this incident. I don't care who resents you or envies your skill. I want answers, and I want them now. This base runs on trust, and someone here is testing the limits. I will find them." His eyes bore into her, sharp as a hawk, demanding certainty where doubt lingered. Riley's pulse remained steady, but a flicker of determination surged through her veins. She would uncover the truth. And her team would stand with her. Tension extended beyond the armory, leaking into the base itself. Riley could feel it in the air, a subtle shift in the usual routines. Guards lingered longer at checkpoints, radios crackled with static interference, and supply caches had been mysteriously disturbed. Whoever the saboteur was, they were bold, audacious, and meticulous. The thought that the threat was inside, someone familiar with the team's movements, gnawed at her. The desert beyond the base seemed suddenly ominous, its vast expanse a potential hiding place for observation or attack. Riley's teammates exchanged glances, subtle communications passing silently between them. They had trained together for years, each member attuned to the other's rhythms and instincts. Their loyalty was unspoken but absolute. Lieutenant Jackson subtly shifted closer, brushing a hand near Riley's rifle without alerting the commander. Sergeant Miller remained near the exit, blocking any potential interference, while Private Diaz's eyes flicked toward potential escape routes. Together, they were a living shield, protecting her from suspicion and, unknowingly, from the eyes of the saboteur. Riley's mind replayed every interaction over the past week, each seemingly mundane incident now heavy with hidden meaning. A misfiled log, a radio check that failed briefly, a tool left out of place, all now appeared as calculated maneuvers. The saboteur had tested the team's vigilance, seeking the perfect moment to strike, and yet Riley's instincts were sharper than the intruder anticipated. She could feel the presence of a calculating mind, someone waiting, someone measuring the reactions of everyone in the room. As the day wore on, the tension became almost unbearable. The armory, once a place of routine discipline, had transformed into a stage of silent war. Riley's thoughts were precise, each scenario carefully considered. How the saboteur might act next, how to protect the rifle, how to keep the team unified. Every micro-expression, every twitch of muscle, every nervous glance became a potential clue. And yet the saboteur remained elusive, hidden in plain sight, testing the boundaries of trust and loyalty. Then a flicker of movement outside the armory caught her eye. The desert shimmered in the midday heat, but something darker lingered near the perimeter fence. Riley's instincts screamed, someone was watching, someone patient, someone calculating. It was a silent threat, external yet intertwined with the chaos inside. The saboteur wasn't just testing the team's vigilance. They were probing for psychological fractures, exploiting tension to weaken bonds that had been forged in training, trials, and battlefield experience. Commander Hawk's voice finally broke the oppressive silence again. "I will not tolerate hesitation," he said. "Someone here has compromised the trust of this unit. That will not go unpunished. If the guilty party does not come forward voluntarily, I will uncover them myself." The threat was clear, but so was the unspoken challenge. Loyalty would be tested, bonds would strain, and secrets would surface. Riley's gaze returned to the shadow at the perimeter, her pulse steady despite the danger. She gripped her rifle, feeling its weight, its familiarity, its balance, a reminder that precision and clarity could cut through deception. Her team remained a silent shield, standing with her in a tense, invisible fortress. She knew that uncovering the saboteur would require patience, skill, and trust in instincts honed through countless drills and missions. Day's tension climaxed in silence, each member of the unit aware of the unspoken truth. The saboteur was inside. Someone among them had violated trust, and the next move could determine the fate of the team or cost lives. Riley's eyes narrowed, determination hardening within her. The game had begun, the desert held its breath, and the invisible chess match of loyalty and betrayal was underway. Someone had crossed the line, and Riley Kane intended to find out who and make them pay. Night fell over the Nevada desert, painting the sky in deep purples and streaks of dying orange. Inside the base, the armory's lights flickered as shadows stretched long and menacing across the walls. Riley Kane sat alone at the workbench, methodically checking her rifle, every nut, screw, and sight alignment inspected with precision. On the surface, everything was flawless. Every piece gleamed, every mechanism performed perfectly, but Riley's instincts screamed that perfection could be a trap. Someone had tampered with her equipment before, and now the threat was closer than ever. The desert outside was silent, almost oppressively so, broken only by the occasional gust of wind rattling fencing and distant radio static. Riley's eyes constantly flicked to the windows, catching the subtle shift of sand and the faint outline of movement at the edge of the perimeter. Someone or something was watching. Her pulse remained steady, but adrenaline prickled her skin. This was no ordinary breach. The saboteur was meticulous, patient, and cunning, striking with precision and disappearing before anyone could detect them. Riley's teammates, unaware of the shadow outside, assumed the armory was secure. Lieutenant Jackson had left to monitor the base perimeter, Sergeant Miller had taken post near the entrance, and Private Diaz patrolled the nearby corridors. Their vigilance was routine, yet Riley knew that the real danger had never been inside the base. The unseen enemy was out there, observing every move, waiting for the opportune moment to act. And if they had learned anything about her team, the consequences could be catastrophic. She replayed the anomalies from the past week in her mind. Misaligned weapons, jammed radios, misplaced tools, and subtle interference in communications. Each incident had seemed minor at the time, small lapses easy to dismiss, but now they were threads woven into a dangerous tapestry. Whoever was behind this wasn't just careless or reckless. They were calculating, probing for weaknesses, waiting for a misstep to exploit. Riley's focus sharpened, her senses heightened to the smallest detail. The faint scratching of sand against metal, a soft shuffle from the perimeter, a shadow that didn't belong. Her gloved hands traced the rifle's stock again, feeling for imperfections. The rifle was flawless, yet Riley's gut told her that this was precisely what the saboteur had intended. A weapon that appeared perfect could lure confidence, mask deception, and lure the team into complacency. Her mind ran scenarios like a battlefield simulation. If someone accessed her rifle again, would it be an attempt to frame her? Or worse, to injure or kill someone during an operation? The thought made her tighten her grip, knuckles whitening. Suddenly, a faint noise echoed from the storage room behind her, a soft metallic click, almost imperceptible. Riley froze, every nerve on high alert. Her team might not notice, but she did. Slowly, silently, she raised her rifle, scanning the dimly lit room. Nothing moved, yet the hairs on her arms stood on end. Whoever it was, they were skilled in stealth and deception. The saboteur had likely tested the armory before, memorized the patrol routes, and anticipated response times. Riley exhaled slowly, refusing to let fear compromise her precision. Outside, the desert shadows deepened, and the silhouette she had glimpsed days before seemed to shift closer, weaving with the terrain. Riley's instincts screamed that this was more than observation, it was reconnaissance. Someone was learning the team's patterns, predicting reactions, and planning the next move. Her pulse remained calm, but the danger pressed against the edges of her awareness like a silent predator. One mistake, one lapse in focus, and the saboteur's plan could unfold with devastating consequences. Riley quickly moved to the security console, checking cameras and motion sensors. Some systems were offline, others flickering with static interference. The pattern was familiar, deliberate sabotage, subtle but effective. Whoever was out there knew the base's systems intimately, enough to mask their presence while manipulating perceptions inside. Riley's mind raced. Only someone with training, experience, and insider knowledge could manage this. The saboteur wasn't a rookie. They were skilled, patient, and dangerous. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft shuffle outside the armory door. Riley's heart didn't race. Her body responded automatically. She crouched behind a storage crate, rifle leveled, every muscle primed. The door creaked slightly, then stopped. Silence returned, thick and oppressive. She scanned the perimeter through the narrow window, catching a fleeting shadow dart behind a supply container. Whoever it was, they had been patient, testing, observing, learning the team's reactions. Riley exhaled, steadying her aim, knowing that the next encounter would not be subtle. Saboteur's message had been clear. They weren't just trying to compromise equipment. They were trying to destabilize the team, to test loyalty, trust, and nerves under pressure. Riley's teammates, even those loyal and vigilant, could be drawn into doubt. One misstep could fracture the unit, leaving everyone exposed. She knew the only way to protect them and herself was to anticipate the saboteur's moves before they happened. Every scenario, every possible betrayal had to be considered. Hours passed like this, tension coiling tighter with each heartbeat. Riley remained vigilant, shifting positions, scanning the armory and monitoring security feeds. The desert outside whispered secrets in the wind and shadows danced with malicious intent. The unseen enemy was patient, methodical, and unyielding. Riley's determination hardened. The saboteur had underestimated her, her skill, her instincts, and the loyalty of the team that stood silently behind her. Finally, Riley made her decision. She would not wait for the saboteur to strike again. With quiet precision, she began a controlled sweep of the armory, mapping potential access points, noting weaknesses in the base's defenses, and preparing contingencies. Her team remained a silent shield, even in absentia, and Riley's confidence grew. She would uncover the intruder, protect her team, and restore the fragile trust that had been tested. But as she adjusted her scope and surveyed the perimeter once more, a shadow shifted near the desert fence line. Someone was out there, waiting, calculating, and Riley realized the chilling truth. The saboteur wasn't just testing equipment or protocols, they were testing her. And this time, the game would move from observation to confrontation. Desert night held its breath. Riley Kane, sniper and protector, tightened her grip on the rifle, every sense alive, every instinct sharpened. The unseen enemy was patient, but Riley was ready. And when the saboteur finally revealed themselves, they would find her prepared. The sun had finally dipped behind the distant Nevada mountains, casting long shadows across the desert training grounds. The team gathered for a live-fire exercise, one designed to test precision under extreme pressure. But tonight, the exercise carried a tension far beyond ordinary drills. Riley Kane adjusted her rifle, the familiar weight grounding her, as Commander Hawk's sharp gaze swept over every soldier. The earlier tampering incident lingered in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating, and every movement of the team was scrutinized as if it could reveal the saboteur. The briefing was terse. "Tonight, every shot counts," Hawk said, voice low but commanding. "Any failure will be recorded, evaluated, and questioned. Remember, your trust in each other is the only thing keeping this unit alive. Someone among you has violated that trust. I will find them, and if I do, there will be consequences." His eyes lingered on Riley, sharp and probing, as if daring her to flinch. The room tightened with tension, each soldier aware that even a single misstep could have ramifications far beyond the exercise. Riley's pulse remained steady, but her mind raced. She reviewed her rifle in her hands, checking the alignment, the scope, the trigger mechanism, every detail flawless. She knew the saboteur had been meticulous, leaving subtle cues designed to create doubt and fear. If they struck again, they would likely exploit hesitation, distraction, or lack of vigilance. And tonight, every second would matter. Her teammates were aware too, subtly shifting to protect her. Lieutenant Jackson stood slightly behind her, an unspoken sentinel, while Sergeant Miller and Private Diaz formed a silent perimeter around the firing line. The protective barrier was almost invisible, but it was there. The exercise began. Each sniper took their assigned targets in turn, rifles raised, breaths controlled, fingers steady on triggers. Riley's first shots were precise, each round hitting its mark with surgical accuracy. Commander Hawk's eyes narrowed, studying her movements. Something about her composure seemed almost untouchable. He noted the small details, the way her breathing synchronized with her aim, the subtle adjustment of her shoulder, the instinctive recalibration after each shot. Riley's skill was undeniable. Tension remained. One misalignment, one hesitation, and the saboteur's interference could be revealed. And for the first time, Riley felt the weight of responsibility not only for her own performance but for the cohesion of her team. Every glance, every twitch, every subtle signal had to be calculated. Sergeant Miller watched her closely, a mix of envy and scrutiny in his gaze. Private Diaz fidgeted nervously, glancing between Riley and the targets, aware that the slightest misstep could draw attention and suspicion. As Riley fired, a faint anomaly caught Commander Hawk's eye. One shot hit slightly off-center, a subtle but noticeable deviation from her usual impeccable aim. He paused, studying her expression. Was it fatigue or had the saboteur struck again? The tension in the air became almost tangible, each heartbeat a countdown to revelation. Riley's teammates, sensing the scrutiny, subtly adjusted positions, shielding her from prying eyes without drawing attention to themselves. Their silent support was precise, almost instinctive, a living shield of loyalty forged over years of training and battle. Riley's mind worked faster than ever, running scenarios in milliseconds. Could this misfire be a distraction, a deliberate attempt by the saboteur to frame her, or simply an anomaly, a minor lapse in focus? She recalibrated instantly, adjusting her stance, her aim, and her breathing. The next shot landed dead center, the target obliterated with a perfect strike. Commander Hawk's gaze lingered, suspicion and grudging respect warring in his eyes. Riley's confidence returned, bolstered not just by skill, but by the unwavering loyalty of the team forming a silent perimeter around her. The exercise continued, each shot a test not only of marksmanship, but of psychological resilience. Riley's teammates subtly guided attention away from her whenever the commander's scrutiny grew too intense. Lieutenant Jackson, positioned strategically, mirrored her movements, drawing the eye subtly while Riley's focus remained razor-sharp. Private Diaz and Sergeant Miller covered peripheral angles, guarding against unexpected interference. Together, they were a unit of unspoken trust, an invisible shield around Riley, protecting her from suspicion and, unknowingly, from the eyes of the saboteur outside the armory walls. But the saboteur was patient, and Riley knew the tests weren't over. Every subtle anomaly, the faint static in the radios, the misaligned targets, the inexplicable glitches in the range lights was part of a calculated plan. Someone had studied their routines, analyzed their weaknesses, and now pushed just enough to create doubt and tension. Riley's pulse remained steady, her focus absolute, but the stakes had never felt higher. She was not only protecting herself, but the integrity of the team, and one misstep could unravel everything. As the night deepened, the tension reached its peak. Riley's final shot narrowly missed a decoy placed intentionally by the command team to test reaction times. The small misalignment caught Commander Hawk's attention, but he couldn't immediately discern whether it was skill, fatigue, or sabotage. The desert night was silent, the base still, yet each soldier felt the invisible pressure pressing down. Outside, shadows shifted in the distance, the faint outline of the saboteur still present, studying, learning, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When the exercise concluded, the team regrouped, every member aware of the unspoken truth. Loyalty had been tested, suspicions lingered, and the saboteur remained unseen. Commander Hawk's eyes lingered on Riley one last time, a mixture of doubt and respect evident. "I will uncover the truth," he said, "and whoever it is, they will answer for their actions." The words resonated in the silent night, a promise of confrontation, justice, and the dangerous game that had begun. Riley exhaled slowly, lowering her rifle, but her vigilance didn't waver. Her team had shielded her, yet the enemy outside was still calculating, still waiting. She realized that this was not just a test of marksmanship, it was a test of loyalty, strategy, and survival, and the saboteur had only just begun. The desert held its breath, and Riley Kane, sniper and protector, prepared for the inevitable confrontation. The unseen enemy was patient, meticulous, and deadly, and when they made their next move, Riley and her team would be ready, but only just. The desert night had deepened into an obsidian void, and the Nevada base was eerily quiet. Inside the armory, Riley Kane crouched over the security console, her gloved hands tracing the faint glow of the monitors. Every camera feed, every sensor reading was a clue, a potential thread leading to the saboteur. She reviewed footage from the past week. Subtle anomalies she had noted before now took on new significance. A shadow flitting behind supply crates, a misaligned camera feed, an unaccounted movement near the perimeter fence. Someone had been meticulous, studying the team, and every tiny detail revealed a calculated pattern. Private Chen, Riley's trusted ally, entered silently, kneeling beside her. "I've cross-referenced the access logs," he whispered. "Someone has been moving through restricted areas without clearance. Look at the timestamps. They match the interference in communications during drills. Whoever this is, they know our schedule, our routines, and they're exploiting it." Riley's eyes narrowed. Every anomaly, every interference, every misplaced tool was intentional. The saboteur wasn't reckless. They were precise, patient, and dangerously skilled. Riley's pulse was steady, but adrenaline sharpened her senses. "We need to anticipate their next move," she murmured. "They're testing our vigilance, our reactions, our trust in each other. And if we slip, someone could get hurt." Chen nodded, scanning the footage for any additional discrepancies. A figure appeared fleetingly near Riley's rifle the night before, disappearing before anyone could identify them. The saboteur was clever, moving like a ghost through the base, leaving just enough disturbance to create doubt, but not enough to be caught. Her mind raced through possible suspects. Sergeant Miller, whose envy of Riley's skill had been simmering for weeks. Private Diaz, jittery and easily manipulated. Even Lieutenant Jackson, whose loyalty was strong but whose movements occasionally seemed distracted. Any of them could be the saboteur or none at all. Someone had insider knowledge, training, and patience, and the longer the mystery persisted, the more dangerous it became. Suddenly, Chen froze, pointing at a screen. "Look at this," he whispered. A sequence of surveillance footage revealed the saboteur entering the armory late one night, but the figure's face was partially obscured. "Enhance it," Riley said, adjusting the digital zoom. Fingers flew over the console. The figure remained indistinct, but a gloved hand brushed against a rifle, the same subtle pressure Riley had felt days before. Whoever it was had been testing the equipment without leaving evidence. They had underestimated Riley's instincts. The implications were chilling. The saboteur had access, knowledge, and patience, and now Riley realized they were escalating. The minor anomalies, the misaligned rifles, the interference in communications, it was all a precursor to something larger. She turned to Chen. "We can't wait for them to make the next move. We need to act preemptively. If we let them strike again, it won't just be equipment at risk, it could be lives." As they worked, Riley's mind replayed every incident from the past week, connecting each detail: misplaced toolkit, radio static, subtle misalignments in target drills, and the shadow she had glimpsed near the perimeter. It was all part of a carefully orchestrated plan. The saboteur had been testing her team, mapping their responses, engaging trust. And now, with each passing hour, the stakes rose. Outside, the desert wind whispered against the fencing, carrying the faint sound of movement. Riley glanced toward the windows, catching a subtle shadow near the perimeter fence. Someone was there, patient and calculating, just as she had anticipated. They were watching the team, studying every move, anticipating reactions. Riley exhaled slowly, her focus sharpening. This wasn't random. It was deliberate, methodical, and personal. Her team remained vigilant, unaware of the full scope but sensing the tension. Lieutenant Jackson positioned himself near the armory door, Sergeant Miller patrolled the perimeter, and Private Diaz monitored communications. Each soldier played their role with instinctive precision, unaware of the invisible web Riley and Chen were unraveling. Trust was fragile, and any misstep could fracture the unit, or worse, give the saboteur the advantage they needed. Riley reviewed the evidence again. Fingerprints on the rifle rack, minor discrepancies in security logs, unusual movement during drills, all pointed toward someone with training and insider access. Yet the identity remained elusive. Every scenario she considered led to multiple possibilities, each as dangerous as the last. Whoever this was, they were clever, calculating, and determined to test the team's limits. Then a faint noise from the perimeter caught Riley's attention, a soft scrape against the fencing. She froze, scanning the desert with her scope. The silhouette she had glimpsed before shifted slightly, then vanished. Her pulse remained calm, but her instincts flared. The saboteur was patient, waiting for a misstep, waiting for a moment when doubt and distraction would give them the upper hand. Riley knew that confrontation was inevitable. The question was when and who would emerge unscathed. Chen leaned closer. "If we don't find them soon, the next move could be disastrous," he whispered. Riley nodded, determination hardening. She knew the saboteur had underestimated her skill, her instincts, and the loyalty of the team. Their plan, no matter how meticulous, had a flaw. Riley Kane did not falter under pressure. She would uncover the saboteur, protect her team, and restore the fragile trust that had been tested. Hours passed in tense silence as they mapped patterns, cross-referenced footage, and studied anomalies. Riley's focus was absolute, her senses attuned to every detail. The desert outside whispered threats and secrets, but she was ready. The saboteur had calculated each step meticulously, but Riley had one advantage they hadn't anticipated: intuition sharpened by years of training, loyalty, and a mind that refused to be outmaneuvered. Finally, Riley paused, staring at the security footage one last time. She traced the shadow's movements, cross-referenced with access logs, and began to see the outlines of a plan. The saboteur had left clues, subtle but telling, leading Riley to a chilling realization. The person responsible wasn't acting out of impulse. They had a goal, and it involved every member of the team. Their patience, their calculation, and their cunning made them a deadly adversary. Riley tightened her grip on her rifle, determination blazing in her eyes. The saboteur had underestimated her, underestimated the team, and underestimated the bond forged in trust, loyalty, and shared trials. Now the pieces were falling together. The next confrontation would reveal the saboteur's identity, and when it did, no one would be unscathed. Desert night stretched endlessly, a silent witness to the invisible war unfolding within the base. Riley Kane, sniper and strategist, exhaled slowly. She had the advantage now: clarity, preparation, and loyalty. But she also knew one truth: patience was the saboteur's weapon, and the next move would determine who emerged victorious. The game was far from over. Desert night had thickened into a velvet black, broken only by the soft hum of security lights and the distant rustle of wind over sand. Inside the armory, Riley Kane moved silently, every sense alert. The surveillance footage, cross-referenced access logs, and subtle anomalies had finally formed a pattern, a trail the saboteur had left, almost imperceptible, but revealing enough for those trained to see. Tonight, patience would pay off. Riley knew the confrontation was imminent. Whoever had tampered with her rifle would have to make a move, and she would be ready. Lieutenant Jackson positioned himself at the armory entrance, scanning the dim perimeter. Sergeant Miller and Private Diaz flanked key access points, their movements careful but protective, forming the silent shield Riley had relied on since the crisis began. Their loyalty was unwavering, each instinctively understanding that the next move could determine who would survive the night. Every shadow, every flicker of movement, every whisper of wind could be the saboteur or the beginning of a trap. Riley crouched near the security console, tracing the route she had pieced together. The saboteur's movements over the past week had been calculated but not perfect. Tiny discrepancies in access times, subtle disturbances in equipment, and faint traces on the floor created a trail. Her pulse remained steady, every heartbeat synchronized with her focused breathing. The saboteur thought they were invisible, but Riley Kane had been watching too. Suddenly, a soft click echoed through the armory, almost drowned by the hum of electronics. Riley froze, eyes narrowing. The movement was deliberate, subtle, designed to test reactions. Her rifle swung smoothly to the source, scope raised, every muscle primed. Shadows flickered near the corner of the room. The saboteur had entered. A figure stepped into the dim light. The hood of a jacket obscured their face, but Riley recognized the gait immediately, deliberate, controlled, with a practiced stealth that betrayed military training. The saboteur had insider knowledge, no doubt. Their goal was unclear, but the intent was lethal: test the team, destabilize trust, and strike when hesitation appeared. Riley's instincts flared. This was no longer a game. It was a battle for control, for survival. "Step away from the console," Riley's voice rang out, steady, precise, commanding. The saboteur froze, evaluating the situation. The armory was lit just enough to reveal movements, but obscure enough to hide identity. Riley's teammates subtly shifted into position, forming an invisible barrier between her and the intruder. Lieutenant Jackson blocked the exit, Sergeant Miller flanked one side, and Private Diaz mirrored movements on the other. The saboteur had underestimated the team's cohesion and the bond that had shielded Riley all week. The intruder moved slowly, calculating each step. Riley Kane, the voice was muffled but familiar, and Riley's heart skipped. It was someone she had trusted, someone who had trained alongside her, someone whose loyalty she had believed unwavering. The betrayal cut sharper than any weapon. Her eyes narrowed. "Why?" she demanded. "Why risk everything? Why sabotage the team?" The saboteur hesitated, then dropped the hood, revealing Sergeant Miller's face. The team collectively tensed. Envy, ambition, and resentment had driven him to this point. He had planned carefully, testing their skills, observing routines, and probing weaknesses. His goal had been to expose Riley, or perhaps even frame her, to elevate himself in the chain of command. Yet Riley had seen through it, her instincts unerring. "You think I don't know what I'm doing," Miller said, voice low and controlled. "Every move I've made, every misstep I've engineered, it was to prove something, to show who's really capable." His eyes darted to the rifle. "You think loyalty is everything, but power matters more." Riley's pulse remained steady, but inside, a storm of anger and disbelief surged. "You risked lives," she said calmly, every word precise, measured. "You endangered this team, this base, and every mission we've ever undertaken. Do you understand what that means?" Miller smirked, but the confidence was brittle, unsteady under the weight of Riley's gaze. "I did what I had to," he said, "to survive, to rise." Riley exhaled slowly, adjusting her stance. The armory was small, claustrophobic, the shadows playing tricks on every wall. Every muscle was ready, every movement calculated. "This ends now," she said. "You have one chance. Step away, surrender, and maybe we salvage this. One false move and you won't get a second." Miller hesitated, weighing options. His training told him he could try to fight to escape, but the perimeter was locked. Riley's aim was perfect, and the team's silent shield left no angle uncovered. His eyes flicked between Riley, Jackson, Diaz, and the consoles monitoring the base. Escape was impossible. Pride, ambition, and fear battled within him. Finally, Miller made a move, not aggressive but desperate. He reached for a nearby weapon. Riley's reflexes were instantaneous. The rifle rose, scope-aligned, and the shot wasn't lethal but precise. It disarmed him, sending the weapon clattering across the floor. The room froze. Miller stumbled back, realizing that he had been outmaneuvered. Riley's calm, unyielding presence had neutralized the threat without unnecessary bloodshed. Lieutenant Jackson and Private Diaz moved in, securing Miller while Riley maintained watch, eyes sweeping for any additional threats. The betrayal was contained, but the tension lingered like smoke. The saboteur had been revealed, but the consequences were only beginning. Trust had been fractured, loyalty tested, and the team forced to confront the reality that ambition could become lethal. Commander Hawk entered just as Miller was restrained, his expression a mix of relief and fury. "I warned you," he said, voice low, deliberate. "Trust is everything in this unit. Betrayal like this, it's unforgivable." His gaze swept over Riley, lingering in respect. "But you saw through it. You protected your team and no lives were lost." Riley exhaled, tension draining slowly. The armory was silent now, except for the low hum of lights and the distant desert wind. The saboteur had been caught, the immediate threat neutralized, but the lessons remained. Trust was fragile, ambition could be dangerous, and vigilance was everything. Outside, the desert seemed calm, but Riley knew better. Shadows still moved, wind still whispered, and patience remained a weapon in unseen hands. The night was far from over, but the immediate crisis had been resolved. Riley Kane, sniper, protector, and strategist, had emerged unscathed. But one truth lingered in her mind: betrayal could come from anywhere, even the closest allies. Desert night held its breath, the armory now quiet, but the tension and vigilance would remain. Riley's eyes swept across the team, understanding that loyalty was more than words. It was actions, courage, and unwavering resolve. And in that quiet moment, she knew the final challenge was still ahead: restoring trust, maintaining unity, and preparing for the next test. The first light of dawn seeped across the Nevada desert, painting the base in pale gold and soft shadows. The air smelled of sand, oil, and tension finally easing, but only slightly. Inside the armory, Riley Kane stood with her rifle lowered, eyes steady, muscles still coiled from the previous night's confrontation. Sergeant Miller sat restrained, his ambition and envy laid bare, neutralized by Riley's precision and calm. The team was intact, but the echoes of betrayal lingered like a shadow in the corners of the room. Commander Hawk paced slowly, his boots echoing against the metal flooring. His eyes were sharp, yet softened slightly as they lingered on Riley. "You handled this exceptionally," he said, voice low but firm. "Your instincts, your judgment, and your ability to lead under pressure prevented disaster. Lives were saved and the unit's integrity remains intact. But make no mistake, this was a test of everything we stand for. Trust is fragile, loyalty is paramount, and betrayal can destroy even the strongest team." Riley nodded, exhaling slowly. The adrenaline that had coursed through her veins for days was beginning to ebb, replaced by clarity and reflection. She looked at her teammates, who had formed the silent shield that protected her through the chaos. Lieutenant Jackson, standing with hands resting on his rifle, met her gaze and gave a subtle nod of acknowledgement. Sergeant Miller's restraint had prevented immediate harm, but his betrayal reminded everyone how easily tension could fracture unity. Private Diaz, who had remained tense throughout, finally relaxed, exhaling shakily. Riley's eyes swept over the team. "We survived because we trusted each other," she said, voice steady but infused with emotion. "Not blindly, but because we acted with awareness, skill, and loyalty. The saboteur thought we'd fracture under pressure, but we didn't. We protected each other. That's what matters." Morning sun rose higher, casting warm light across the base and highlighting the desert's endless horizon. The events of the past days had tested everything: discipline, skill, loyalty, and resolve. Riley knew that vigilance would always be necessary, that the desert shadows could harbor unseen threats, and that ambition could tempt even trusted allies. But the unity forged through loyalty, silent protection, and shared trials had proven stronger than the scheming of a single rogue soldier. Commander Hawk approached Riley, placing a hand on her shoulder, a rare gesture of approval and acknowledgement. "Corporal Kane," he said, voice low, measured, "today you proved something more than skill. You proved leadership, foresight, and unwavering commitment. The saboteur underestimated you and nearly underestimated us all, but thanks to you we're intact. Remember this: a true leader protects, anticipates, and inspires trust. You've done all three." Riley nodded, absorbing the weight of his words. She glanced at Lieutenant Jackson, who offered a faint smile, and Sergeant Miller, whose gaze was now a mixture of regret and defiance. Even in restraint, Miller's presence reminded everyone that vigilance could never waver. The desert outside stretched endlessly, serene yet merciless, a reminder that threats would always exist, but preparation, unity, and loyalty could meet them head-on. As the team began clearing the armory, Riley moved methodically, checking every rifle, tool, and security system. Every detail mattered. Even after the saboteur had been revealed, there were lessons to be learned, procedures to reinforce, and trust to rebuild. The subtle cracks in confidence had to be repaired. Each step was deliberate, each check precise, a ritual to restore not only equipment but morale and faith in the team. Private Dyes approached cautiously, a hint of newfound respect in his eyes. "Corporal Kane," he said quietly, "thank you for foreseeing through it, for keeping us safe. I don't think any of us could have done it without you." Riley's lips curved into a small, appreciative smile. "We all played a role," she said. "Trust isn't just one person, it's every single person acting with awareness, skill, and loyalty. We shielded each other, that's why we're still standing." Lieutenant Jackson stepped forward, his expression resolute. "And we'll continue to stand together," he said. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it as a unit. No one goes it alone." Riley felt a surge of pride and reassurance. The silent shield, the unspoken bond, the loyalty that had kept them alive, now it was stronger than ever. Commander Hawk's voice carried over the room once more. "Miller will face consequences," he said, "but let today be a reminder. Vigilance is non-negotiable, trust is earned, and loyalty is the foundation of survival. Remember what you've learned here, remember each other." He paused, eyes scanning the team. "Today you survived not just an enemy outside, but betrayal from within, and that in itself is a victory." Riley Kane took a deep breath, scanning the armory one last time. The desert outside gleamed in the morning light, endless and unforgiving, but the team remained strong, ready for whatever challenge came next. Shadows would always exist, threats would always linger, but loyalty, vigilance, and trust had proven themselves stronger than deceit. She lowered her rifle, feeling the weight and balance as a symbol of precision, responsibility, and protection. The team gathered outside, the warm sunlight washing over their faces. Riley looked at each member, Jackson, Diaz, Miller, and even the restrained threat that had almost destroyed them, and understood the lesson clearly. True strength wasn't just in skill, but in unity, trust, and the courage to protect one another. The desert wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of sand and dust, a reminder that vigilance was endless, but so was resilience. Riley Kane exhaled slowly, allowing herself a rare moment of relief. The saboteur had been revealed, the immediate danger contained, and the team's loyalty reaffirmed. But the lessons remained, etched into memory. Trust must be protected, loyalty reinforced, and vigilance unyielding. The armory, the rifles, the desert, and the shadows had all tested them, and they had endured. As the team prepared to move to the next assignment, Riley glanced back at the armory one last time, a faint smile crossing her lips. The battle had ended, not with bloodshed, but with trust restored, bonds strengthened, and a reminder that even in the harshest conditions, unity could triumph over betrayal. The desert sun rose fully now, illuminating the team as they moved forward, stronger, wiser, and ready. Riley Kane, sniper, protector, and leader, walked at the forefront, rifle secure, eyes alert, and resolve unbroken. The shadows remained, patient and watchful, but the team had proven they would face them together. The story ended not with fear, but with clarity. Vigilance, skill, and loyalty were the true weapons, and Riley Kane had wielded them all with unmatched precision.